Hello, everyone, and I hope you're having a great week so far. So, this week we're going to be talking about the 7 elements and principles of design and how they might be used within Photoshop. The elements of design are the fundamental aspects of any visual design, which include line, shape, form, space, color, value, and texture. Graphic designers use the elements of design to create an image that can convey a certain mood, draw an eye in a certain direction, or evoke a number of feelings. While the elements of design form the basics of any image, designers also lean on the principles of design, which are a set of practices of working with the elements of design that make a composition look pleasing to the eye. While this lecture will focus on graphic design, as that is my specialty, there are many similar elements and principles for illustration, animation, photography, and almost every visual medium. Knowing the elements and principles of design will give you language to say what makes up an image and why it works or doesn't work. You can follow along with the slides that we'll be using in this lecture in the link in Canvas, but they'll also be present in this video. So first, let's begin talking about the design element of line. A line is a basic design element consisting of two connected points. Lines can be used on their own or to form other shapes, such as a circle, or combined together to form shapes like a square or triangle. Whether they're horizontal lines, diagonal lines, or vertical lines, lines can help direct the eye towards a certain point in your composition. You can also create texture by incorporating different types of lines, such as curved or patterned lines, instead of just straight lines. In design, lines are often used as dividers to outline something like an image. We may sometimes use dotted or dashed lines to create a less visually impactful divider. Much like how a larger or bolder line of text can separate a document, lines can be used in a similar way. We can also look for implied lines. These are not actually drawn, but we can connect the dots in our minds to create these lines. Next, a shape is a two-dimensional area that is surrounded by an outline, either overt or implied. Artists can use other elements, including line, color, value, and shadow, to give the shape the appearance of a three-dimensional shape. There are two main types of shapes, geometric and organic. Geometric shapes or mechanical shapes are shapes that can be drawn using a ruler or compass, such as squares, circles, triangles, ellipses, parallelograms, stars, and so on. Organic shapes are irregular shapes that are often complex and resemble shapes that are found in nature. Organic shapes can be drawn by hand, which is why they are sometimes subjective and only exist in the imagination of the artist. Third, form is one of the elements of visual art which pertains to the way that a shape or personal physical configuration occupies space. For a three-dimensional work of art like a sculpture or a work of architecture, form is the shape, structure, and arrangement of the components like length, width, and depth of a shape. Instead of creating form through physical shape, visual artists create the appearance of form on a flat surface by using light, shadow, the appearance of an object's contours, negative space, and the surrounding objects around the subject matter. However, form can be illustrated or constructed. It is defined as shadows on surfaces or faces of an object and can be enhanced by tone, texture, and color. Form adds visual dimension and can be stimulating and engaging to the eye because it adds realism and depth that draws you in. Form might be used in product photography to give a viewer a visual feel for the product, or be used to emphasize objects through effects such as drop shadows. Next, space refers to the distance around and between the subjects and aspects of a composition. It's imperative to have space in a design, unless the purpose of the design is pure chaos. Space allows design elements to have ample breathing room. This goes for typography as well. Letters that are crammed together are difficult to read. In addition to separating elements, space can also add emphasis to elements and contribute to the balance of the design. There are two types of space that are involved in design: positive space and negative space. Positive space refers to the shapes of objects. It usually refers to anything that is considered the main focus of the page. Negative space is the white space or empty space, which is part of the design that is not there, the space between the visual elements. Negative space or white space is vital for design success and helps achieve the following objectives. It improves readability. Letters that are too tightly crammed together or too widely spaced apart are really hard to read. Although there are no hard rules when it comes to letter and line spacing, if it takes effort to read, the spacing needs adjustment. White space also helps create clarity. Without white space to separate elements, a design can look pretty confusing. If it's not clear which elements belong together and which don't, users are in for a terrible experience. Keep your users happy by adding space to help them focus on one element at a time. And lastly, white space can help achieve balance. A design with poor use of space or complete lack thereof can appear disharmonious. Harmony is important in design because it creates an effect of unity or completeness. Although there are multiple factors that contribute to harmony, white space is a pretty vital one. Fifth, color is a visual property of objects that is determined by the wavelengths of light that they reflect, emit, or transmit. Color is somewhat amorphous term that can be described with other terms like hue, tint, tone, saturation, value, and brightness. You're probably familiar with some of those tones from our projects in Photoshop. Color choice plays several important roles in design. In addition to setting a mode and tone and bringing out certain emotions, color also contributes to contrast, variety, harmony, repetition, and space, which are all principles of design. Because of these many roles, color choice can effectively make or break a design. This meaning can often differ between cultures. For example, red is a color of happiness commonly worn by brides in China. However, in South Africa, red is a color of mourning worn at funerals. While sometimes a color is just a color, it can still subtly affect how people will view your work. That's why it's important to keep your audience in mind when creating visual media. Additionally, how colors are combined can affect how viewers might see your art or design. Similar colors or analogous colors are often used to suggest connections between different objects, while contrasting colors or complementary colors are often used to draw attention to the point where the colors meet or to highlight their differences. Next, value refers to how dark or light an element is. The values of a color are often visualized in a gradient, which displays a series of variations on one hue, arranged from the lightest to the darkest. Artists and designers can use the various values of color to create the illusion of mass and volume in their work. The relationship between the values of two or more elements is known as value contrast, which can be high or low. A high value contrast example is black text on a white background. A low value contrast example is gray text on a gray background. A high amount of contrast between elements directly affects readability. Note in the slide how much easier it is to read one box on the screen than the other. What good is it to know where a color stands in the range between black and white? Value brings several benefits. Value creates a sense of depth. Playing with values simulates form and defines the relationship between elements. It can also create the illusion of movement and closeness. Value also ensures a sense of clarity. Using colors with different values ensures the elements in the design are highly contrasted and clearly distinguishable. And lastly, value is an additional tool to use for emphasis. Using value effectively can lead the eye and attention to specific focal points in design. Lastly, texture describes the look or feel of the surface of an object. Tactile textures are textures we can feel, such as soft fur or rough sandpaper. In visual design, we're mostly concerned with visual or implied textures, which are textures we can see. Tactile texture is a physical sense of touch, such as whether it is rough or smooth. The texture of an object can affect how you feel about it. Smooth, shiny objects attract our eye, while rougher surfaces can cause our eye to slow down as it takes in the various details of the texture. In contrast, visual texture refers to the imagined feel of the illustrated texture, which can create more visual interest and a heightened sensory experience. This is the sort of texture you will use most often when you're working digitally with Photoshop or other similar programs. There are many ways and reasons to add texture to a design. Texture can create a rough and organic look and feel that gives the design a more human touch, even if it is completely digital. Visual texture adds depth and can make a design more diverse and interesting. However, it is best to use texture in moderation in order to prevent it from taking over the design and appearing overwhelming. So let's go over some examples of the element of design in use. Firstly, in this collaboration between the luggage company Away and the Pantone color system, designer Leta Sobierajski, apologies for that mispronunciation, uses line, color, and form to create a visually interesting composition. Through the use of lighting and shadow, the viewer can get a sense for the texture and feel of this luggage. Your eye is drawn to the luggage through the many of the lines used in the piece, leading to these pieces to the product. as well as their solid color, creating a place of calm in your eyes to rest in the chaos of the area around it. Next, we have a screenshot from the movie Ghost in the Shell by Mamoru Oshii. We can see that the higher perspective shifts the wires and lines of the chair around the character to help us focus on her, drawing our attention to her. It also might give us the feeling of looking down on her, making her feel smaller, more insignificant, or weak. Lastly, the Ndebele people of South Africa and Zimbabwe paint their houses with vibrant shapes and lines. The colors and shapes give an intensified symbolic meaning to the Ndebele and can represent the status or power of the home's owners, offer prayer, announce a marriage in the home, or it can represent a current protest. This use of color, shape, and line is an incredibly important tradition that is passed from mother and daughter. So that finishes what we're covering about the elements of design. So now that you're finished with this lecture, go and complete the quiz down below, and then I'll see you in a bit to talk about the principles of design. I hope you all have a great day, take care of each other, and I'll see you next time.